We're going to go over some clips from the press conference for this absolute sham of a trade that was orchestrated by Mavericks GM Nico Harrison. This was streamed by WFAA. They're a leading news outlet in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I will link to this in the description. Here we already have Nico Harrison sitting down, and Jason Kidd walked in right after him and is about to take a seat.
All right, I'll open it up. Thanks for everybody for coming. Jay, is it normally this crowded for your pre-game speeches?
No, they don't want to hear about anybody who's out.
No.
So he follows up making the worst trade in NBA history with a joke, and he's laughing to start this press conference that is really introducing how he destroyed the Dallas Mavericks franchise. This is more than just wins and losses and X's and O's. Luka Doncic was entrenched in the DFW community. This is going to hurt the Mavericks in so many different ways. We'll start with the on the court play. Absolute horrible trade, unnecessary. Even if you wanted to be a contrarian and just, okay, I'm going to trade Luka Doncic because I'm this genius that's just far and above everyone else, and I have this vision and it's going to play out. Even if you wanted to take that route, why wouldn't you get more in return than what they did? So we'll go ahead and continue the clip. But Jason Kidd did bring him in line there at the very end.
On a serious note, we definitely understand the magnitude of what just transpired.
Okay, and so he goes on to thank Maxi Kleber and everyone involved in the trade. And so we'll go ahead and skip forward.
They're starting two-guard, guarded all the top players in the league, and he's young and athletic and bouncy and, gets his hands on lots of balls. So we really feel that they're bringing in, they're adding into the culture that we're trying to create here. We feel that defense wins championships, and we're excited to go. We feel like we're built to win now as well as in the future.
Well, that's interesting because you already were. Luka Doncic already got you to the NBA Finals last year, and he was only 25. So he was going to be there to lead your franchise for the next 8 years. Now you've brought that all into question, but you say this move is for now and in the future when that's what you already had. That's one reason of many why this trade doesn't make any sense whatsoever, is because you were already good. You didn't have to you didn't have to change anything. You could have just added to that and develop the continuity with the team and continue forward and build on what you had last season, which is a team that made the NBA Finals. And you decided that you were going to go in a completely separate direction and bring in Anthony Davis and trade away the face of your franchise, someone who was again entrenched in the DFW community. And when I say community, DFW is comprised of I think it's over 7 million people. So he was the Dallas Mavericks. You just traded away the Dallas Mavericks. He was the identity of the team, and from there, everything else fell under Luka Doncic. So it's a completely nonsensical trade. But we'll continue on.
This is obviously one of the most unique trades. There's never been a player as accomplished as Luka traded at this point in his career, especially without asking out. What got you guys to the point where you felt like moving on from Luka was in the best interest of the franchise?
So the reporter what happens a lot of times is reporters soften their questions, what they really want to ask. And the reporter, I think if I heard him correctly, he rephrased this as one of the most unique trades in the NBA history. What he meant was the absolute worst trade that you could have ever come up with.
Yeah, I think it wasn't really like a point. I think it was like, how do we make our team better? There's some unique things about his contract that we had to pay attention to.
Unique things about his contract. He's the face of your franchise. You just max him out and give him whatever he asked for. That's the unique thing. He's easily a consensus top 5 player in the NBA. You just give him everything possible and build around him.
There's other teams that were loading up, that he was going to be able to decide make his own decision at some point of whether he wants to be here or not, whether we want to supermax him or not, or whether he wants to opt out. So I think we had to take all that into consideration and feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous.
Yeah, he's your franchise player. So, and if you did have to trade him, if it did come down to that, why not get more? Because you had tunnel vision from all the reports. You have tunnel vision for the Los Angeles Lakers, and you don't look at other possibilities. Why would you not look to get more? And if it was Anthony Davis that you just had to have, why not a three-team trade? You just traded away Luka Doncic for maybe 35 cents on the dollar.
Summer.
Nico, did you have any indication from him or his representation that he was going to opt out or not take the extension or anything like that?
No, not at all. Not at all. Nothing verbally that would lead me to believe that.
So nothing verbally that would lead you to believe that Luka wasn't going to take the extension. Why? What are you doing? Why would you ever make this trade?
Why would the Supermax be a difficult decision on your end?
Oh no, it's not a matter of it being a difficult decision. It's a matter of, once you put that out there, they accept or they don't, and at that point you're on the clock.
So the reporter asked about why the Supermax would be a difficult decision, and here he's saying it's either they take it or they don't. But again, when we get to that point, if a trade is necessary, what doesn't make sense about this? Fine, if you have to trade Luka Doncic, fine. But what doesn't make sense is why you accepted the return that you did. That's the part that makes this the worst trade in NBA history, because we've seen what Rudy Gobert returned, right? We've seen what was returned for Mikal Bridges and Kevin Durant, and these are all recent trades. So why is Luka Doncic, a player that is far superior in trade value and in talent and everything else than any of those players at the time they were traded? Why is Luka Doncic the lowest return, the lowest ROI?
Did you have discussions with any other teams besides the Lakers about this deal?
No, and I'd like to give Rob Pelinka a lot of credit. Trades, you guys have been around here.
Rob Pelinka gets a lot of credit for accepting this deal where it's like it just fell into his lap, and it's like, yes, of course I'll take this idiot. Like, why would you even trade this? Of course I'll take it. He's giving Rob Pelinka credit here for what he's about to say is that he kept this under wraps. And that's what is one thing where when we look beneath the surface, why was this under wraps? Because any other GM, anybody else that's rational, is going to seek out multiple offers from different teams. And certainly we can understand not wanting this to become a rumor, but why wouldn't you look to maximize the value of this tremendous asset that you have, this franchise player, this unique player that had just led you to the NBA championship, the NBA finals? Why wouldn't you seek to maximize the return? You just focused in on the Lakers and you made sure to keep it quiet. That is something that definitely, if there's an investigation to be opened up, why did you accept this return? It doesn't make any sense.
Trades don't happen at the smallest level without stuff getting out. And Rob and I were able to have, really intense conversations over the course of, 3 or 4 weeks.
Of course, Rob Pelinka wouldn't want this to go out. There's no credit to be had here. He was acting in his own self-interest. Why would Rob Pelinka ever want this to get out? That he was about to steal Luka Doncic for maybe 35 cents on the dollar. Out of his own self-interest, Rob Pelinka would never have told anybody if this is actually what happened. I don't think this is actually what happened, because there's no way any NBA GM that's looking out for their franchise's best interest makes this trade.
Weeks that started out as a coffee that, was more, hey, would you ever, I don't know, would I? Let me think of, and then it built upon that. And, we kept it between us. We had to keep it tight. Kidd didn't know about it. But Kidd and I are aligned, and we talk about.
So he says there that Jason Kidd didn't know. There's even a quote, and I don't know if it's from this press conference. I didn't catch it if it was, but where Rob Pelinka asks, "Are you joking?" And I think that's everybody's reaction. Are you joking? Like, are you seriously entertaining this trade? And apparently he was. So he just thinks he is this. And the owner went along with it. This is such a fascinating topic right now, such a fascinating transaction that's happening in the NBA. And again, I do not accept the official story and all of the explanations that are given, because even if we accept them, it still doesn't make sense. Something is off here, right? And what I suspect is that there is a Rich Paul connection. And I think there's a LeBron James connection with this trade. I suspect that was this trade was made to help serve Rich Paul and LeBron James, because they had been complaining. LeBron James had acknowledged that the Lakers weren't an NBA championship contender. That was obvious. So what needed to happen? Well, they needed to basically get something for nothing. And that's what happened. That's when you get something where it's so lopsided in value, you really got something for nothing, because the rest of it, the Lakers franchise, we could look at everything the Lakers possess, all of their assets, all of their players, all of their draft picks, their draft swaps, everything. It wouldn't even equal to Luka Doncic in a legitimate trade. It wouldn't even rise to that level, really not even close. And again, when we look at recent trades, none of them, the market value for Luka Doncic was so much higher. And then you have Nico Harrison, who is just tunnel vision towards the Los Angeles Lakers and would only considered their offer. So something else was in play here, and we don't know what it was, but I do not at all whatsoever accept the explanations and the reasons. And they can throw out as many as they want. They can throw out defense. They can throw out the contract. They could throw out, we've seen the Luka Doncic conditioning. Maybe there was discord in the organization, etc. But none of this rises to the point where you couldn't get more of a return for Luka Doncic. And the reason for defense, then we just had to have Anthony Davis. He was the one. Then why not a 3-team trade? Why not anything else but accepting maybe 35 cents on the dollar? There should have been 2.5 times more assets to where I'm going to even entertain the idea that this was a legitimate trade.
Archetypes, and we talk about the culture that we want to create. So I know the type of players that he likes without actually talking to him. Hey, would you like, so I know that. And J. Kidd coached them when they won the championship. So I think when you're aligned with your coach like that, I know the type of players that he likes.
So Nico Harrison said that he didn't consult with Jason Kidd. I think Jason Kidd is going forward with this because there's no other choice. I don't think there's any way that Jason Kidd would have ever signed off on this trade as it was. There may have been problems with Luka and the organization. Fine, we could just accept that, right? Even if it may not be true, let's just accept that. You still don't take this trade.
And so I felt good about it making sense to where we're trying to go.
With Luka's pedigree and potential that he's shown so far, this feels like a move that you absolutely have to be right about. There can't be any doubt in your mind when you pull the trigger on it. I'm just curious, what convinced both of you that you will not be wrong?
Well, let's be clear. I'm the one making the decision, and Jay's supportive of it. So it's me.
I think he's supportive of it because he has to. I don't think there's any part of this where Jason Kidd was going to go along with this. Maybe, I'm just reading into it, but he doesn't have a choice at this point, so he may as well be.
I don't do anything that's scary. I think everything that we do, we put a lot of work into it. We study it, and we restudy it, and we go back, and I understand the magnitude of it. So the easiest thing for me to do is do nothing, and everyone would praise me for doing nothing.
Not necessarily doing nothing, but not making a trade that ruins your franchise. So yeah, that is the difficult thing to do, right? When you go and destroy a franchise, that's very difficult. And you show up for the press conference and you admit it that it was all you're doing. So yeah, that would be the difficult part, but you shouldn't have done it. Even if you're the genius contrarian, you can be the genius contrarian, you can make the trade, but you have to get that reciprocal value back. And you didn't do that. So if you knew that Luka Doncic wasn't the answer, okay, accepted. But why wouldn't you get more in return for him when you could have easily called another franchise and received more value, much more value, 2.5 times more value for Luka Doncic? You have absolutely destroyed the Dallas Mavericks franchise.
But we really believe in it, and time will tell if I'm right.
You weren't right. No, this is not a time will tell. You're wrong right now. That's known. That is a certainty because everyone looks at this trade and has the reaction that's attributed to Rob Pelinka. Are you joking? It's not a matter of what happens after the trade. That's only if everything, all else is equal. Like when the New York Knicks traded for Karl Anthony Towns, and we had them sending over, what was it, DiVincenzo, and then Julius Randle, and I can't remember all the trade, but that trade was one where it wasn't certain exactly who won the trade, and obviously as time has worn on, so far it appears that the New York Knicks have come out on top of that trade. This one isn't that because it's not arguable. Everybody, it's a consensus. This is not a controversial opinion. You lost this trade. It doesn't matter if the Dallas Mavericks win the NBA championship. The Dallas Mavericks could have received more in return had you done your job and look out for the best interests of the Dallas Mavericks franchise.
A number of times you mentioned the word culture and how Anthony and the other players you bring back fit that culture. Are you implying that Luka no longer fit that culture?
No, listen, one thing about me, I'm not going to talk bad about any players. Like that's not going to do, us or me any good. I just say there's levels to it. And there's people that fit the culture and there's people that come in and add to the culture. And those are two distinct things. And I believe the people that were coming in are adding to the culture.
What would you just say to fans who are frustrated about this move?
I'm sorry they're frustrated, but it's something that we believe in as an organization. It's going to make us better. We believe that it sets us up to win not only now but also in the future. And when we win, I believe the frustration will go away.
No. Even if you won, the frustration would still be there. It's not as simple as wins and losses and X's and O's. Luka Doncic was tied to the DFW community. And you can't just trade him and think that everything's going to be okay just because you're winning at a 650 clip and you make the conference finals. That's not going to play out. Also, it's very easy. It's very easy to envision a scenario where Anthony Davis is injured and he's out for an extended period, and the Dallas Mavericks just have an injured player that's in theory a star, but unable to play for 2/3 of the season. And then from there, you have a role player and a 2029 first-round pick that now, because you have traded Luka to that team, the first-round pick is probably a non-lottery pick in 2029. So you've ruined this franchise. And I mean, this is such a bad trade. It's also fascinating. I'm not a fan of the Dallas Mavericks. To me, this is so objectively bad. And also in a way incredible. And I think the word for me is unbelievable. When I saw this trade, I found out about this trade because I received an update that Bill Simmons had published a new podcast. And I saw the headline, Luka Doncic traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. I didn't process that. I didn't think that Luka had actually been traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Then I read it. I was like, okay, he was traded. Who was he traded for? And then when I found out, like, who else? Like that's it. And so it's incredible. Nobody can believe it just because this will be something that lasts in NBA history. This will be a marker in NBA history that is focused on. And there will be so much collateral effects, so many collateral effects to this trade. This is an absolutely momentous trade. And it's one that will always go down as horrible for the Dallas Mavericks. If they end up winning a championship, sure, more people will come around to it, but it's very unlikely, right? So he took a huge chance on something that's extremely unlikely, and where not taking this chance would have remained where the Dallas Mavericks are a contender year after year, and they could build on it. But he took an unnecessarily huge risk, and this is going to end up with, and one other point here is the Dallas Mavericks ownership. It doesn't appear that they are knowledgeable about how the NBA works. So if they signed off on this trade, they may not have known. Maybe they didn't know at the time that they were signing off on something that was going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars in valuation. I've got to think it's over $1 billion in valuation. But then also, really hurt ticket sales and everything around this. This has alienated so many people that were Dallas Mavericks fans. This was an absolutely horrible trade. It's not a time will tell. We know right now that you could have received more had you attempted to do so. This isn't acting in the best interest of the Dallas Mavericks. I will link to this press conference in the description for this video. It's from the WFAA news outlet in DFW.